I say this first. You don't have to be a pro rugby player. Rugby is like such a good way to just learn about life.
That's one thing that I'd say to any young kid coming through. Be willing to make sacrifices.
Keep evaluating what you're doing. Ask for help. Don't be embarrassed by anything. Don't do anything based on bravado or ego.
I definitely don't shy away from those failures and from the tough times, because I think that's what sets you up.
The Burgess Podcast has a purpose to motivate and inspire young rugby players through talking to role models in the game. In these podcasts, we get the opportunity to talk about the careers of a variety of different people in rugby, from academy players to European champions, and through this provide advice and motivation to all young rugby players.
So, welcome back to the 9th episode of the Burgess Podcast. Today we're joined by former England Sevens and former Wasps player, Will Wilson. Will, how you doing, mate?
I'm all well, thanks, James. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Look, we'll get straight into it. How did rugby come into your life as a youngster?
So I can't really remember like exactly when, but I've played since I can remember, really. I think we moved out to Dubai when I was about 5. So Dubai Exiles like to claim that they were my first club. I'm not sure if that's actually on the record, but I'll give it to them. And then I just kind of played through school. When I was younger, I'd play schools, like we'd have games Wednesday and Saturday, and I'd play at my local club on Sunday and kind of repeat that until, everybody got a bit bigger and a bit heavier and you were sort of limited to like 1 game a week. So I started doing that. And then I wasn't really in like any academies or anything kind of going through school. Like I did a bit of London Irish up to under 15s and got dropped. Did Wasps 18s for like 3 months, didn't get offered a contract. And I went to Oxford University and I was like, okay, I'll just try and like play a bit of rugby in the youth setup, see what happens. Ended up getting a blue in my first year, which is what happened when you play in the varsity match against Cambridge.
Oh, blimey.
And I was like, okay, that was a bit of a surprise. And I got another one the next year, and then I was like, okay, kind of what's going on with the rugby? And then at the end of my second year of uni, England Sevens got in touch. I went for like a 2 days trial of training with them. Off the back of that, I got a trial tournament. Off the back of that, I played on the European circuit, and off the back of that, kind of just kept going in steps. They were like, yeah, basically it was just like, just keep coming back. So they enticed me in with a load of kit, and
everyone loves Stash. Everyone loves Stash.
Oh, it was honestly unbelievable. I was there, like I had all this stuff with like my initials on it, and I was like, this is mad.
That's when you know.
So I then juggled that with uni rugby in my final year at Oxford, and then I went out of there to play pro with Wasps for a couple of years.
So let's take it back to when you're at Wellington. Obviously, that Wellington side you were with, obviously they've got some professional, quite a few professional names now playing in London Irish. That was a year where London Irish signed a lot of Welly boys. Rory Brand were in the side during the first team. Isaac Curtis Harris were they? Matt Williams were they? All that kind of year around.
Yeah, so they were the year below me.
Yeah.
But we obviously played them all up. So we had Rory, Matt, Isaac, Tom Parton, Jack Ingle, who I think just missed out on a contract, and then the year below we had Josh Basham. He played up as an under 16, and then my year we had Sam Aston Robinson and Connor Dolan was professional as well.
So that says it all. That says it all about Wellington. Obviously, they're notorious for their level of rugby across the UK. How do you feel your time at Wellington obviously improved you as a player on and off the pitch?
I think what was interesting was it was just like such an unbelievably high performance environment, and we didn't really realize it.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a stage where it was all kind of driven by us as players. And I was captain, so luckily I kind of got to push things through that way. But I certainly wasn't the best player. I was kind of like a glue that held everything together while all the superstars kind of did their own thing. But we were very much at the case where we sat down at the beginning of the season and we were like, look, the coach has sort of said, we're going to push you as hard as you want to go. And we were like, I mean, look around the room, we can just win everything. So we were like, let's try and win everything. So we got pushed so hard, but we just loved it. And it was great in that, everybody was kind of doing their own thing off the field. We had lots of different groups of friends. We ranged across year groups and things like that. And then when we got to the pitch, we had like a very unifying common vision, and so I found that really interesting to look back on and think actually we were so united behind like pursuing one thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's crazy that even back then, even as a schoolboy, without knowing it, you're almost in as close to a professional environment you can be without actually being in a professional environment. Like at a school like Welly, you've got the facilities, you've got the coaches, you've got the programs, and it's almost setting you up for professional rugby without even being a pro.
Yeah, well, we were like obviously unbelievably, fortunate and privileged to have the facilities that we had. And we had a couple of great coaches as well. But really, it kind of just came from us. We were just like, look, we're gonna just end ourselves like 3 times a week in training. We'd be playing like 14-minute continuous sevens games in the sevens term. We did it 2-3 times a session. It was awful.
It's crazy.
Like it was so hard. But like I look back on it and think that was just awesome. Like it was just so much fun.
Who was your director of rugby at Wellington at the time? Was Steve Shortland about at that time?
So we had Steve Shortland, but he was sort of a secondary behind Kevin Brennan. He was the main coach, really, especially for sevens, which I think was the bit that I certainly enjoyed more, even though we had kind of equal levels of success. Yeah,
definitely. And how did you find, obviously, tournaments like Roslyn Park Sevens? Because obviously they're biggest sevens, schoolboy sevens tournament in the world. How is them experiences? Obviously, I've played at Roslyn Park Sevens as under 16. It's not going to compare to Wellington, Millfield, all them kind of levels. So how did you find them experiences?
They're bloody hard. Like Park is 9 games over 2 days, and that's really, really tough. And you play on crap pitches with like rubbish balls, and the pressure's always because you can't really lose a game. In the group stage, if you lose a game, you're out. So we kind of rocked up and we thought we were going to be kind of there or thereabouts, but we really, and I remember in my upper 6th year, well, in fact, in both years we got the hard side of the draw both years. So both times we actually had to play Millfield before we got to the final, both years. Which was
that is tough.
such hard games. I remember that my year 12 year, so my lower 6th year, we played a Millfield team which had like Whiteley, it had Callum Sheedy, who's obviously now playing for Wales, it had Adam Hastings. Blimey. It had a couple other guys who had like serious wheels. Alec Coombs, who's played for Scotland Sevens, and us, who were like, we had a few guys who turned pro, but like nothing on the level that they were. And I think they won 10-5, but pretty much everybody who watched was like, that's the highest quality game of school rugby we've ever seen.
It's crazy.
And I was on the pitch just like breathing out my ass, like, oh my God, this is so hard. But the tournaments are great. Like it's such an amazing feat of kind of logistics just to get everybody there and get people firing through.
Definitely.
And like it's just such a special kind of occasion because it is really, it's kind of like the FA Cup, isn't it? Everybody turns up, everybody could win. You make one mistake and you're going home. Well, so the stakes are so high, and like winning it was such a cool thing.
I can imagine. I mean, my school, I've never got to second day. We're a rowing school. We're not quite a rugby school, and it's always that day 2 of Roslyn Park in lessons. Is anyone doing work? Probably not. Everyone's on the live stream watching the likes of Wellington and all the Sedbers and everything. It is brilliant. But look, off the back of obviously Wellington, you got an offer and you got into Oxford University. How did that all come about? Why Oxford? And how was that moment when you got your offer for Oxford?
It was pretty nuts, actually. Like I'd sort of thought about it, and then I didn't really kind of know what to do. I think one of the things I look back on quite a lot is, I don't know if I hadn't gone to a school like Wellington, if I would have ended up applying. Because I just didn't really know like how it all worked, like if I was good enough, if I really wanted to go. But I talked to a couple of talked to house boss, and they're like, you should definitely apply. We're going to have to have a look around a couple of things. And then I went out for an interview, which was the worst 2 days of my entire life. I hated every second of it. And then I got my offer letter, which was just unbelievable. I really hadn't expected to get in. I really I'd done well on my GCSEs, but I didn't know how I was going to do with my IB exams, which I was taking up 6 instead of A-levels. And I got the offer and I was like, bloody hell, this is actually going to happen.
Crazy,
And then, smashed my exams and ended up there. And I was just like, my first week, I was kind of like, this is a bit mad. And even now, like, I've got at home, I'm living out at the moment, but at my parents' house.
Yeah.
Got my degree certificate framed on my wall, and I look at things now for like AstraZeneca vaccine. It's going through Oxford University. And I've got friends working on that project, and I think I went to that institution. It's just absolutely crazy. I start to pinch myself sometimes. It's
unreal. And also, you say that obviously Wellington had its impact on that, and I think I don't know if you know, but Guy recently got an offer from Oxford, and
that's awesome. I'll send him a message.
Yeah, and so obviously we're both from pretty similar backgrounds. We both went to state school early on, and I think it's very true that I strongly believe that the environment that Wellington kind of brings, it builds that confidence in people. Because I don't know if Guy's naturally very clever, But I don't know if he, like you said, would have had the confidence to go to the likes of Oxford if he hadn't been in the environment Wellington is like. So I think even, obviously we talk about the rugby, but academically and the environment that you're in at Wellington is second to none.
Yeah, I do sympathise to an extent with Oxford because they get a lot of stick, and rightly so, I think, for diversity statistics, especially, in public school kids make up 7% of the school population, yet they make up 50% of places at Oxbridge, which is ridiculous.
It is crazy.
But at the same time, like, if you're in an environment like a public school like Wellington, you're going to be pushed, and and things are going to be expected of you that perhaps wouldn't be, in any other way. And I think once you're in there, I have to realise that it wasn't my fault that I was there. Like, my parents sacrificed a lot to put me through the school. I got a couple of scholarships, and I was like, obviously I'm going to try and push myself that way. But when I got there and met mates, like some of my closest mates are state school guys who almost beat the odds, if you like, I just think, wow, I wonder what would have happened to me if I was in your situation. You just don't know. But then I suppose it's beyond your control.
Exactly. And to be honest, I feel kind of the same, because I went to state school till year 9, and then I was lucky enough to get a rugby scholarship at Shiplake, where I'm at now. And I do strongly wonder where I'd be because I feel like a lot of state schools, people have potential to go far, but a lot of people give up because they're frustrated that they don't have the environment that facilitates their growth as such. And I think that is one of the reasons why a lot of people give up at state school, because they just don't feel as if they've got the environment around them to really kick on like they want to.
I think so. And that's what private schools fester in.
Yeah.
It's just an environment of, achievement and pushing yourself, and, nothing's good enough. You got to just keep pushing and keep trying. But a lot of that also comes down to wanting to embrace that.
Yeah.
I had so many friends that went who just could not be asked, and they really just went, you know what? No, this is like, I'm going to have it handed to me on a silver platter. I'm not going to go out and get it. And it used to really irk me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad at least that I managed to get the most out of it. And it sounds like Guy is too, which is
great.
Definitely.
And so your time at Oxford, you played rugby there. What was the level of Oxford rugby compared to Wellington? Maybe how did they differ?
Well, it was men's rugby, which I'd never played before.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I was coming out of school like I was 18. I was playing in the back row, but I wasn't big. I was sort of just above 90 kilos, which is a pretty low fighting weight. And I was playing against men. And that had never really kind of happened before, and it was a bit of a sort of wake up in that the game moved faster.
Yeah.
Everything was a bit more sophisticated, and the collisions were just so much more intense. Like, there were just heavier people flying in at sort of greater focal points. And obviously, as an open side, you're trying to find like little gaps to try and get into, particularly around breakdowns. And I was just getting hammered. I thought, oof, this is tough. But I went expecting to sort of play for like the uni second team. Maybe I'd get like a couple games for the for the Blues team and things like that. But I say I got lucky. In fact, the captain when I joined was probably going to play at open side, but I still don't really know what happened, but he was rendered ineligible for the varsity match because of some sort of like his course didn't quite fit the criteria or something.
Oh, blimey.
So all of a sudden I was there, like, instead of sort of being on, probably I might have made the bench. I think I probably would have done. But instead, I was kind of like, "Oh, bloody hell! I'm actually gonna start now."
Play.
And so I have a team kind of like I just sort of played part of what was actually quite a well balanced back row in the end, because you had me as sort of like a fetcher and a link man, and then we had a big ball carrying 6 and a carrying 8 who kind of got around a bit. But the standard was pretty high. I was quite surprised.
What are them games like, obviously, at Twickenham? It must be such a surreal moment, obviously, lining up against Cambridge. Probably one of the biggest games in rugby that's not professional rugby as such. It must have been pretty surreal.
It was amazing. Like, I kind of look back at those and think that is just a crazy, crazy time and something amazing to be a part of. And we sort of get... It's a real shame, actually, because obviously before rugby went professional, the varsity match used to be like a real kind of, it was where internationals would be bred. Twickenham would get like 60,000 people into it because it was such a huge game, and it's dying, which is a real shame. But the 3 games that I was a part of, we got sort of 22, 25,000 in. You still make a hell of a noise.
Yeah, definitely.
And you just kind of grit it out. Like, I remember actually my last varsity match, I played alongside Andy Sewell, who used to play for Saracens, Falcons, England Saxons, all sorts of things like that. And I liked him. He was a very good player, probably a year or two past his prime. I'm sure he won't mind me saying that if ever he listens to this, which I very much doubt. But I think he kind of assumed that, you know, he's played at very nearly the highest level. Like, he'll be able to handle university rugby. And I remember distinctly sitting in the changing rooms with him after that match where we were heavy favourites and we lost, like, convincingly.
Yeah.
And he sat down, he was like, that's probably the most intense game of rugby I've ever played. Because it's just guys
it shows, doesn't it?
We're just so, like, it's a really strange thing to be a part of because you're so unbelievably passionate about one thing. And everybody does their own thing with, like, studying, and they've got their own lives going on, their own mates in college, and yet you come down to rugby. It was like the Wellington thing that we talked about
everyone's got the same vision.
Level of just people were there, like, because they wanted to be there, no obligations, no nothing. We paid quite a lot out of our own pockets to actually play.
Yeah,
and we were just there because we loved it and really believed it, and it was just fantastic.
And I think that makes such a difference. Like, when there's an environment where everyone's got the same passion, the same drive, it just makes it so much easier for the situation to flourish. And obviously, you flourished at Oxford, and you got the opportunity to link up with England Sevens, which you briefly mentioned. How did that all come about?
It's a great question. Basically, I got an email from, I can't remember who it was. It might even have been Simon Amor, the head coach, just being like, "Do you want to come in for a couple of days?" I think the seniors, the team were away in Vegas and Vancouver, so it was like a very skeleton squad training. And I went, "Yeah, sure." Well, of course, I wasn't going to say no. So I went along for like literally 2 days, no obligations. Let's just we've heard your name bandied about. Let's see what you've got. And then I did that, and they were like, "Right, we've got a tournament coming up." It was against like a few unis. I think it was at Loughborough. We'd like you to play. I went, "Okay, class. Like that would be great." So I went along and I played. And I must have played all right, because then they were like, underneath the World Series, there's like a European series that happens every summer where the bigger nations like England, France send like a skeleton squad for like young players they want to develop, and they play against like all sorts from like Ireland to Italy to Poland to like Germany to all sorts of things. It's gritty. And they were like, "Yeah, we'd like you to play in that." So I thought, "Oh, this is amazing." So I then, like, juggling my work in my second year last term, I played in Moscow, Woods, which is in Poland, and Clermont in France. Which was just mental.
It's crazy.
I'd just be like, rugby. I'd be training full time in London, doing my work kind of virtually. I'd go back to Oxford for like a day a week to have a tutorial, change out my library books, and then leave again. And then I just, and it was a bit silly. And I did that, and then I got a call in like July over the summer from Simon Amor, who said, "Right, basically, here's the situation. We have got the Commonwealth Games coming up next year, and they almost clash. They're a week after the Hong Kong tournament. And basically what we're planning on doing is sending like a sort of first/second team to Hong Kong and the seniors straight to the Gold Coast of the Commonwealth Games. So there's probably going to be an opportunity for you for Hong Kong if you stick at it." And I was like, "Well, obviously, I'm going at that all over the place."
Of
so
course.
they said, "Right." So they just say, "Come in," literally, because I wasn't on a contract or anything. I didn't have a uni contract, because I wouldn't have been able to accept it, because I couldn't really do like distance learning, especially in my final year. But they basically said, "Come in and train whenever you can. We'll get you to as many tournaments as possible. And that'll just be that." So I went, "Okay, brilliant." So I went in for like a couple of weeks pre-season, which was really humbling, because I'd never come last in a fitness session before, and I was hanging on at the back like, "Oh no."
Them Sevens boys are machines.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And I was like, because it was a really weird comparison, because obviously with 15s I'm not that big and not that heavy, and I felt like a bust compared to the guys like Norts and Mitch, who were just like off miles ahead. And then basically I couldn't do a lot of the tournaments because of varsity match, but after that we had like two of the grittiest things of seven. So we went to Dublin and Rome for hit outs against Ireland and Italy. Just before we went. And so it was like, I remember the Ireland one particularly, mid-February during the Beast from the East. So the pitch was like covered in snow. We left at 5:30 in the morning.
That is not what you want.
Flew to Ireland, played 4 games the first day after clearing the snow off the pitch, had one night, woke up the next day, played another 3 games and flew home that same evening. So we literally spent 36 hours in Ireland and played 7 games of sevens.
That is ridiculous. That is crazy.
It was unbelievable. But like we just bonded really nicely as like a sort of little group of, you know, we knew we weren't the superstars on the first team or whatever. We were like, we're in this for like an amazing opportunity that we're so lucky to have, and we just got on with it and like gritted it out. And then, pretty much most of us made it out there and got caps in Hong Kong. Which, if you want to play one tournament, you want it to be Hong Kong.
Yeah, so. Hong Kong's amazing. What an experience! So, how was that experience? Obviously, you said there playing over in Ireland and the poor weather conditions. I mean, Hong Kong is completely different. What was it like playing over there?
Hong Kong was crazy. It was just like, because obviously I was a uni student. You know, I was just kind of like, you know, I'm here like I'm wearing this England kit. But I didn't really feel like an England player. You know, I wasn't a professional. I'd been in for a bit, but like not ages. But we got to Hong Kong and we were the England team. Yeah. And it was just kind of a bit crazy. You know, we walked around the set, like if we went anywhere as a team, we'd have England kits on. And people would like be looking at us and taking photos and like asking
the best stash to get.
And I was like, I'm a student. Like, this is just mental. What is happening? And then, we played the games. We unfortunately didn't do very well. We were leading 2 games after the hooter, and then both Scotland and Australia went the length and scored in the last play. So we ended up losing both of them, which was a real shame. But like we gave it our best shot, and it was just the most amazing experience.
It's one of those experiences. Like, does the result really matter that much when you're a student? You're involved in the England squad. You've got the stash. You know what I mean? I know the stash isn't the pinnacle. Obviously, playing the rugby is the best thing. But like, just having that experience to look back on, obviously now and when you're older, like that's the main thing that's gonna matter. Not the results, really. It's the experience that you had over in Hong Kong.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, it was just like, you know, we didn't do very well, and it was a regret. And I haven't been able to play again, which I really wanted to do. I had a couple of opportunities to do it, but COVID blocked one, and a loan period to South Africa from Wasps blocked another, which was a shame. But the further I get away from the date and the more I look back at it, the more I think just how amazing it was to read. And I look at like the cap on my wall and my jersey in my cupboard, and I get that, and I think that is incredible.
There must be so much pride. And then, so obviously in the back end near the 2018-2019 season, you rejoined Wasps and you played a few A-League matches. How did that come about, going back to Wasps? Because I saw you part of their academy, obviously at under-18s, like you said. How did that come about going to Wasps again?
Well, I lost connection with them completely through uni, and then they picked me up playing for Oxford in my final year, and they said, we'll offer you a student contract for next year, but then I wasn't staying on for another year. So they said, okay, we'll take you on kind of full time. So I was kind of like, I was torn because Sevens offered me a contract as well. Yeah. But I thought, you know, I thought at the time that I would be remiss not to give 15 to go and just kind of see what happens. Of course. In hindsight, you know, maybe it was the wrong decision, but if I put myself in that same situation with like the same variables, I'd make the same call again. So it is a shame, but you know, I don't regret making the decision because I know why I made it. I think it was the right one. Of course, and it was that season you got quite a bad injury, if I'm right in saying. What was your injury, and how did you cope with that? Not very well. It's the honest answer. So I turned up, did really well for like the first 4 weeks. We sent a group of we sent an entirely senior academy squad to the Premiership Sevens. We were like, we basically, I think we got a bit mugged off. We were like a bunch of no-hopers, and we were class. We played so well. We got to the final, and then we just ran out of players, and Sarries absolutely hammered us. But we played some really good rugby. But unfortunately, in the final, I tore cartilage in my shoulder, which needed surgery. And then I came back, and literally my first start back, 10 minutes in, I injured the same shoulder. So basically, I played 60 minutes of rugby that whole year. That is tough. Yeah, which was a bit rough. And I struggled with it because it's a difficult one to kind of pinpoint without upsetting people, basically, as I've kind of found. But I was pretty different to a lot of like the standard pro rugby players. You know, if you come out of an environment like Oxford where everybody has typically quite sort of highbrow conversations, you know, there's all sorts of debates and discussions and opinions flying around. And I went into a rugby environment where the main topics of conversation were Fortnite and Love Island. And,
It's a bit different.
I'm sure nobody around me would dispute either of those topics. And I found it quite difficult to fit in, but it was okay to start with because I had the rugby, right, and I was doing well at that and forming some bonds kind of on the field and whatever.
Of course.
And then I obviously got injured, so I couldn't play on the pitch anymore. And then I also got hit with a double whammy the next week in that my granddad died and my girlfriend left to go travelling. So I was kind of like, I don't really have much of a sort of safety net anymore to kind of fall back on. So it was quite a tough, like, isolating time, and it ebbed and flowed and peaked and troughed. And then kind of finally I seemed to get on top of it towards the end of the year. Was back fit, and I felt capable enough to go on loan to South Africa at the end of the season, which was good.
Of course, and if you don't mind, we'll speak a little bit about that, your challenges with mental health, because I'm sure, obviously, we're in a situation now where probably people are going to be struggling a little bit with mental health, and it is a topic of conversation which is really important at the moment. Describe your experience as much as you want to, as much as you can, with depression and how it really impacted your life at the time.
So I felt at the time that I was in it was almost a bit of a catch-22 in that I wanted to assimilate myself with my, colleagues and teammates and housemates at Wasps.
Yeah.
But didn't want to lose what I liked about myself and how I sort of communicated with my friends and my girlfriend who were all Oxford people. And as I found myself sort of moving one way, I alienated people on the other side and vice versa. So if I walked into the Wasps changing room and wanted to talk about, something I'd read the night before or, something to do with politics and things like that, then there was less interest. But if I sort of adapted more kind of like rugby lad mannerisms, which my mates were super hot on, like they killed me if ever I sort of brought any of those back to Oxford. Then that alienated them somewhat. So I sort of felt kind of trapped in the middle in that I wanted to be both, like I couldn't be all things to all people.
Yeah, of course.
And that was quite difficult because obviously when I was at Wasps and injured, the only way I could form those bonds was through like trying to socialise because I couldn't play with my teammates. And the only way that I could socialise with my mates from university was, in sort of short, sharp bursts where the amount of times, like, because frequently at Wasps we have a day off on sort of Wednesday in the middle of the week. If you play Saturday, then train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So the amount of trains I got down to London to like go to the pub for 2 hours with mates on Tuesday night and then go back up. Just to kind of make myself do something it was ridiculous. I'd love to see my receipts. But
a lot of train journeys.
Essentially, it sort of got to a stage where I couldn't pretend to be anybody else anymore. But in the interim, I felt I'd sort of lost myself and what set me apart. And it was a really strange transition because I was so comfortable and so confident. Literally 6 months before, I'd got my degree, I'd got a professional, I got a professional rugby contract. I had a great circle of mates, a brilliant new girlfriend, and I was kind of like, this is class. And then it all seemed to fall apart quite quickly. And I didn't really believe that things could deteriorate so fast, I guess. So it was a big learning curve.
Definitely.
Me, sure.
And it's scary. It's one of those things, like, people are going to be listening to this and go, he's gone to Oxford, he's played Wasps, he's gone to a nice school. But it's not what depression is. Depression isn't the exterior that you live in, really. It is a mental health issue, as much as you'd break an arm. And I think that's something that people are slowly starting to learn and starting to understand about depression. How did you turn it around and turn it into a positive for yourself and really pull through?
I don't really know. I think I was just kind of like, there must be a bit more to life than this, It was very much a sort of take it kind of day by day. I used the club psychologist at Wasps a lot. I went to counselling in London. I got medication and I just sort of got on with it, I think. It was very much a case of like, just wake up, and it was very much a case of like, wake up and, things I had to do. I had to be at training. So I went. I didn't want to be there, but I had to be there. And, when I got home, I had to eat and I had to sleep and I had to recover and I had to do my rehab. So was very much a case of like, there's just all this stuff that, like if
You weren't enjoying.
if you have sort of obligations on you, then at least it provides some form of structure to your day. And then I don't really know, like I must have felt fine, because otherwise I wouldn't have gone to South Africa. And then that was a challenge, but it, gave me something different, and realised that perhaps I was a bit sort of better than I thought. And then I came back, was doing all right. And then I actually sat down with a friend at Wasps who was also struggling, and he didn't really have a clue that I'd been struggling. I didn't have a clue that he'd been struggling. I thought, this just really isn't right. Like, we could have helped each other so much.
Yeah, definitely.
At this time, but because we were both quiet, we had no idea. And that was a real kind of triggering point for me, in that I knew that some of my friends from within rugby and without had anxiety problems or struggled with like self-confidence. And I thought, just screw it. Like, this is ridiculous. We need something. Like, and I can't be bothered to phone up everybody and tell people like kind of what's been happening. So I just thought I'd make it public, and hope that what little traction I had as, a professional rugby player, albeit not a particularly successful one, would give me a little bit more profile to put a message out that people would read, and it would refract through their social relationships.
Definitely. And that's a credit to yourself to obviously do that, because I feel like a lot of people with mental health issues will struggle and feel like they're a burden on the people around them if they talk about it. And I think that's something that, as you said there, clearly other people around us that we may not know are struggling as well. So speaking about it might not just help yourself, like it might help others around you, like you said.
Definitely. And that was, the main kind of thing that I wrote about. I didn't expect people, like if people wanted to message me into it, I was like, that's fine. But this is really a thing for, you read it, you share it to your mates, and then you talk. It was really struck. One of the Wasps analysts, for example, he said, he sent me a message saying, mate, this is just exactly what we needed.
Yeah.
I've shared this to a group that I'm in, which I think was his rugby club or something, and I've had 6 people message me as a result, being like,
crazy.
Can we go for a coffee and have a chat? And I just thought that is exactly the sort of chain reaction that I envisaged from this happening. It's, I don't like, if you want to come towards me, that's fine, but I'm not everybody's best mate.
Yeah.
You talk to people who you want to confide in, and that's how I really thought it would work. And I was pleased that it did.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like I said, that's a real credit to yourself. And obviously, like you said, in that summer, you went over to South Africa and played. How did the opportunity to go to South Africa play rugby? Obviously, that was a bit of a different step for you. What was it like over
it was
there?
a Wasps thing. Basically, because I hadn't played any rugby during the northern season, Wasps were trying to get me rugby in the southern hemisphere winter. So originally I was meant to go to New Zealand, but I think Manawatu pulled out at the last minute. And then the Wasps head of recruitment, I think, scrambled around and found me a spot at a club called Griquas, which is like a very Afrikaans club. I went there, everybody spoke Afrikaans. The region was like very kind of Boer, like real Afrikaner country. I think I was
very different to what you're used to.
Yeah, it was super weird, to be honest. But yeah, like it was nice, to be honest. It was a great opportunity. For the first kind of 4 or 5 weeks when I was in the team playing well, it was really good fun. I met a friend or two outside of the rugby club as well, which was really nice.
Oh, that's good.
And yeah, I found it really interesting because as well, from like a sort of historical standpoint. So I studied a lot of African history when I was at Oxford, and what I found really interesting to observe was that I was able to talk to the white players in the team because obviously I was white.
Yeah, of course.
But also I felt like I talked a lot more openly with the black and coloured players in the team because even though I was white, I wasn't from South Africa. Yeah. So I felt I got a really interesting insight into like South African contemporary society and all sorts of kind of residual like tensions. I wouldn't say open racism because I really didn't see it at the time, and I heard stories that I wouldn't want to comment on.
Yeah,
but it was interesting to me to see a sort of subconscious tension while I was there. I'd observe things on the pitch, like all the black players would go to change their boots in one dugout, and all the white players would go to another dugout, and it didn't seem like that was a sort of. It didn't seem like it was a let's do this consciously. It just seemed like everybody would gravitate towards each other in that way, and I just found that so fascinating.
Definitely.
So from that perspective, it was really interesting.
Definitely, and obviously that's not something that happens here. And to experience that, obviously the rugby would have been a great experience, but to experience a different culture like that, you take so much away from it that you can bring back to the UK. And stuff like I feel like that's why gap years are so good. People go off and immerse themselves in different cultures and bring back so much more than living in, I don't know, Berkshire or Hampshire, wherever you live, if you know what I mean.
It was great. It felt to me it felt a bit more like uni rugby in that our facilities weren't particularly good. You know, we'd be given we didn't have our own kind of training jerseys or whatever. Like there'd just be a sort of pile and it'd be a free for all. Like at the start of training, you washed most of your own kit. You brought your own shorts and socks to games and things like that. And that really like appealed to me. It was kind of like very sort of gritty, like
grassroots kind of stuff.
We'd be doing full bang contact like a day before a game, which was horrible. But also it was very much kind of like a grassroots, gritty, hard-nosed kind of style, which, I mean, if anybody knows my style of rugby would probably know that that's not really the stuff I particularly enjoy. I prefer a bit more space and stuff, but it was a really nice challenge for me to try and mix it with like some big, heavy, proud Afrikaners who weren't really pushed around by a posh English boy. And I just came in and got up their noses. I think I got in like 3 fights in my first 2 weeks. I was just like up people's noses, and it was really good fun. And it was an experience that I really cherish.
Definitely. And so when you came back from South Africa, you went on loan to Cornish Pirates and then playing Championship rugby, which again is a completely different style of rugby. Obviously, a lot of players I've spoken to that play Championship rugby have said that people in the Championship will get under your skin so much more than anything they've ever experienced. So how was your experience in the Championship with Cornish Pirates?
Mate, I loved the Champ. It was class. Like I loved it so much because I think it was so telling for me coming from Wasps, where at the time, if you were in the senior academy, you really struggled to make your mark at the club. But when I went to Pirates, it was like, we got this new guy, he's on loan from Wasps. You know, he clearly knows a thing or two. And then they gave me a chance to play, and I played well. And they were like, okay, right, this guy can, you know, he can really kind of mix it. Yeah. And I just loved it. I loved the fact that, you know, at Pirates, the facilities were terrible. You know, our gym was tiny. We didn't really have a team room. We didn't really have any changing rooms for like the first 4 or 5 weeks. Our pitch was a beach. Our training ground was underwater more often than it was when our training ground was underwater. You know, we'd be training at the local college's football pitch at 8 a.m.
That is crazy.
But I just loved it. It was honestly a group of guys with no egos, just getting down and dirty with it. And we went up and we just beat teams because we had a game plan which was basically, you know, 9 or send up a box kick. I'll chase it, make a tackle. They'll kick back to us, which will be a worse kick. We'll get some field position and we'll go again, which is a very simple kind of play. But I just loved it because everybody bought in so much. You know, like in the Champ, nobody gets paid big money. Nobody's too big for the team. Everybody knows that, you know, you're a peg down from, at least one peg down from where you'd want to be. Yeah. The Pirates mixed it with teams who had like, you know, much better facilities, probably better budgets, more kind of star-studded players. And we went to places like, we went to Doncaster and won. Went to Nottingham and won twice. We hosted Ealing and hammered them. Went to Coventry and just lost. And it was great. I really loved it. And I love getting up people's noses as well. Like, it's so much fun.
Living rent-free in people's heads. Yeah, definitely. And I think the common thing that we've spoken about and you've spoken about yourself is you've flourished, and the teams that have flourished are teams that have had the same vision, the same drive, and all been there for the same reason. Obviously, Wellington, Oxford, and Cornish Pirates. Obviously, Wasps would have all been there for the same drive, but the egos and stuff like that do have a part to play in Premiership rugby, like you've said. And it's quite interesting to hear that the lower down teams, not at the top, the most fun, because obviously everyone looking up to rugby goes, I want to be a Premiership player, but maybe that's not for everyone. And I think maybe you're a case of that you preferred maybe Championship rugby to maybe a Premiership environment.
Well, I think we should caveat that by saying that I didn't make the grade at the Premiership. So perhaps if I had,
but you've been in the environment,
it would have changed.
Maybe.
No, I think the main point for that was that at Wasps, while I was there, the senior academy was so segregated from the first team that we really didn't feel like we had a team. Yeah. And at the same time, you know, we had a director of rugby who come out and watch training and wouldn't eat with the team and wouldn't talk to people or socialise, and then the other coach would be out on the field observing training, running the training sessions with particular players in particular positions. So the director of rugby would then just pick a team off his own back, which might not have trained together at all that week.
Yeah.
So that, I'm thrilled that Wasps are doing well now because they've got a really hands-on coach who I actually really respect. They've got players who are out there having an absolute blast, like
Definitely.
carving up, just doing what they want to do. And it reminds me a lot more of kind of Pirates was quite, it was quite free. It was very kind of, we played to a rigid structure, but you felt free to, I certainly felt free to express myself within it. You could feel free to challenge things and raise your hand and point something out and experiment with stuff. And I just really enjoyed that side of it.
Definitely. And so was Corners Pirates like your kind of your last year in rugby as such? What's your aims within rugby now? Are you still playing? You got aspirations to play, or what's going on with rugby with you now?
So I went to my contract with Wasps expired, and Pirates basically ran out of money in the budget to sign me. So I think they were interested for a while, but it would have been a big jump for me, I think, to move to Penzance full time.
Yeah.
So I'm now actually not playing at all. I went to Richmond for a few months, but found that my mental health problems came back again, and I just thought actually maybe it'll be good for me to have a break for a while. I still intend to play some sort of invitational sevens and things like that, or maybe in like a couple of years I'll get a few mates and we'll join the team in like London too and just have a real laugh,
have some fun.
But at the moment, no, I'm just I'm focusing on my studying and like keeping fit and healthy and seeing what happens when things open back up.
Definitely. So, what are your future plans within your studies and your work as such? What are you aspiring to become or whatever?
So I'm going to be, provided I pass all my exams, I'm going to be a lawyer in about 2 and a bit years' time. So I basically have I have what's called a training contract with a city law firm, which means that because I didn't do a law undergrad degree, so I need to do a year and a bit of study to basically make sure I understand what the law is. Yeah. And then I essentially do like a 2-year apprenticeship at the firm where they call it a trainee, where basically I work in the office. I can't obviously offer like advice myself at that point because I'm not qualified, but essentially I like shadow associates or partners or anything like that, like through their work, do a lot of drafting and due diligence and things like that. And then I'll qualify in about, it's still a long way away, I think, about 2 to 3 years.
How exciting though! It's a long journey, but how exciting that obviously that's what I find so like amazing is like obviously me at the moment I don't have a clue what I want to do, and I'm almost jealous of people that know what they want to do, and you can almost work and drive your studies towards that, and it must be quite exciting for yourself to be a part of, as well as tricky and hard, of course.
Well, I would say that for guys like your age, I've already had a career at 23 or 24 now actually, so I wouldn't. Most of my mates from Oxford are like, they're stuck in jobs they don't really like, or they have just quit and gone back to do more studying, which is quite a common thing nowadays. And we're going to work till we're 70 anyway. So it doesn't if you don't know what you want to do by the time you're 25, then as long as you've
still got enough time.
Yeah, you've still got ages and ages. And I think it's interesting, but for me, like it's an amazing opportunity. I never expected to actually get it. I applied for these things, so I thought it would be an amazing job to do, but I managed to get kind of a dream assignment. And it's a career that I can conceivably see myself doing for a very long time, which is fantastic, but not everybody is as lucky. I'm very conscious that I've hit the jackpot.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, obviously, from hearing your career or whatever, you've worked bloody hard, and then obviously them days of like being at Oxford training, they must have been brutal. And it's all you get what you put in, really, don't you? And that's evident in your case. And look, to wrap it up, if you could give one final piece of advice to aspiring rugby players, what would it be?
Don't feel like you've ever missed the boat, because you probably haven't. Like my sort of journey, if you like, is about as unconventional as it's becoming slightly more conventional now, I suppose. Guys go off to uni and play a good standard of uni rugby there. But I remember being cut from London Irish at 15, got cut from Wasps at 18, thought I might be in the mix for a sort of England 20s camp or something. That never happened. I don't think I was even close. And then all of a sudden, 3 months where basically my entire kind of rugby persona turned around, and I ended up with an opportunity that was just fantastic. So if you're a young guy or girl who really wants something to happen, then don't throw all your eggs in one basket by neglecting your academics at a young age or neglecting a social life or all sorts. If you're good enough, then opportunities will come your way. And if you're not, then there's still an awful lot of rugby you can play at a very good level. You'll probably enjoy it a lot more, and you'll have everything to back yourselves up. So don't oversweat it. Do it for as long as you enjoy it and push yourself as much as you like. Definitely. Would be my thing, because there's nothing that you're going to gain if you don't enjoy something.
Of course, and I think that is so valuable for people to kind of adhere to, because obviously we're in an environment now where everything's on social media. You can see the best players in the country at the best schools all on social media, and it's quite easy to look at 15, 16 and go, look, that's not where I'm at 15, 16. Surely I can't make it as a professional rugby player. And I think it's quite scary and quite dangerous to think that at such an early age that your rugby career is over before it's even started, but it's happening because of the power of social media as such.
Definitely. I mean, when I was 15, 16, I remember playing against Owen James, who was like fly half at England under 16s. Everybody was like, this guy's the best player I've ever seen. And he ended up being my housemate at Wasps, and we were at the same point in our careers. And we went crazy. We could not have diverged more greatly, but we ended up at the same point. You know, Definitely. He was probably a couple of years ahead in terms of, well, especially in terms of salary. But you know, if you follow a route that you think will sort of organically open up opportunities for you, and you don't just think rugby is the be all and end all, or any sport, then I think opportunities will come and find you. Definitely. If you're good enough and you want to take them. Definitely.
Look, it's been an absolute honour to talk to you this evening, Will, and I'm sure it's been an absolute valuable listen for everyone, and all the best with the future. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, James.